Ever wondered about the wild contradictions in the Bible's depiction of God? One minute, he's the loving shepherd, and the next, he's raining fire and brimstone. Isaiah claims God creates evil, and Amos questions if he's the mastermind behind all the world's chaos. Hold on tight as we unravel the mind-bending mysteries that will change the way you see the Bible forever. Are you ready to challenge the conventional narrative? Hit that subscribe button because you won't want to miss this eye-opening journey. His will. In the original Sumerian tradition, the Anunnaki were just as fallible as ordinary human beings, and in the Canaanite tradition, the Elohim were equally so. One always knew which God to support and which to fault, but Jehovah has been left alone to take all the praise and all the blame, whether deserved or not. Since it is not the wrong thing to lay blame on Jehovah, it is generally the case that the bad things are simply said to be His will, and they are left unchallenged with wholly inadequate justifications such as God moves in mysterious ways. Jack Miles, a former Jesuit and a scholar at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem, has argued that many of the Bible's teachings about God, originally defined as guru, are seldom preached from the pulpit. This is because when examined too closely, they become scandalous. In the 4th century, St. Jerome complained that many of the narratives in the Old Testament, which he was translating from Hebrew to Latin, were rude and repellent. Since medieval times, Jewish rabbis and Christian bishops have chosen selective teachings and interpretation over accurate reporting. They have justified the apparent anomalies in Scripture with the unqualified dogma that God's logic is flawless and only man's understanding is lacking. Shifted timeline. It appears that the reason the flood story was shifted in time for Genesis was that it was naturally suited to be God's vengeful reprisal after the Nephilim had consorted with the daughters of men. But the verses dealing with this latter affair were themselves entered in the wrong place in Genesis. They belong to a time before Adam, not to the time of Noah. Genesis states that as a result of earthly sons being born to the Nephilim, God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth. And the Lord said, I will destroy man who I have created from the face of the earth. What then follows is the story of the flood, whereby God is seen to obliterate humankind, which he has previously termed as very good. But he seems to do this because the people have broken some rule which to that point has never been clarified. The religious commentator and former nun Karen Armstrong has suggested that to a sector of humankind, which he has astutely dubbed Homo religiosus, such badly presented stories actually introduced the concept of justifiable genocide, the Lord's punishment. It is believed that the story of the Nephilim and the daughters of men dates back to a time before 35,000 BC, while the flood is said to have happened around 4,000 BC. After the flood, the book of Genesis tells another story in chapter 11 about the Tower of Babel, which is believed to have occurred around 2000 BC. In this story, the people are punished for speaking the same language, which happened to be Sumerian. Despite being previously regarded as very good, they committed a new transgression and were punished for it. The book of Genesis also includes a long list of genealogies between the two stories. In reality, the uniform language was not the transgression at all. The true transgression was that laid down in Genesis, which has been mistranslated in English language and other modern Bibles. What we read now is that the people said, "Go. Let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach to heaven, and let us make a name lest we be scattered abroad." This was never meant very much to anyone. Let us make a name lest we be scattered abroad, people of Shem. It should be noted that the original text mentions the people's statement, let us make a Shem lest we be scattered abroad. The term Shem was used to describe a highward firestone, and the Nephilim were referred to as the people of the Shem. The word Shem, along with Shemaim, meaning heaven, originates from the root word Shema, which means that which is highward. The Sumerians referred to Shems as Naru, meaning stones that rise, while the Amorites called them fiery objects. A Shem was not just a name, It was a highward, fiery structure made of stone that the Nephilim used and associated with heaven. King David raised the Shem as a monument after defeating the Syrians, according to 2 Samuel. Although Shems were also tall, conical edifices, they cannot be considered fiery, as the Nephilim Shems were. These were the original models for what we know today as church steeples, towers with conical spires. Ancient tablets from Nineveh and Egyptian archives describe Enki providing a heavenly Shem to priest king Ataba to ascend and meet Anu. The Shems were highly valued objects with significant meaning, the heavenly stone. Shems were closely related to something called Anna, which referred to both a shining metal and a heavenly stone. The word Shem is associated with its shining aspect, as evidenced by the alternative name of Prince Utu, brother of Inanna, known as Shemesh, the Shining One. The name of Sumer, which was the land of the Anunnaki and the Nephilim, was more accurately pronounced as Shumer, derived from Shem-Ur. This was the land of the people of Shem, and despite the presence of conical towers and heavenly metal, the revered highward firestone of the Shamanna held a much greater significance, as we shall eventually see. The reason of the Anunnaki's displeasure with the Babylonian tower and its topmost Shem is not clear in the Bible. According to Genesis text, Jehovah and the Elohim came down and made it so that people all over the world spoke different languages. The Sumerian historical documents tell a similar story, but they suggest that the confusing of languages was due to the many invaders who came to the region, each with their own way of speaking. These invaders were allowed in because of conflicts among the Anunnaki, which began when Enlil, Anu's eldest son, was voted to the presidency after Anu retired from the assembly. The gods had clasped their hands together, had cast lots, and had divided. Anu then went up to heaven. To Enlil the earth was made subject. The seas, enclosed as with a loop, they had given to Enki, the prince of the earth. Family feud. Enki was unhappy that his brother Enlil got promoted, despite Enlil being the elder of the two. This was because Enlil's mother, Kai, was the junior sister of Anu, whereas Enki's mother, Antu, was the senior sister. Enki believed that true kingship should follow a matrilinear institution through the female line, and as per this right of descent, he considered himself to be the firstborn in the royal succession. I am the great brother of the gods. I am he who has been born as the first son of the divine Anu. During a period of political upheaval, Enki's son Marduk sought to gain power by winning popular support among the people of Sumer and Akkad, going against the assembly's decision. This is why Marduk is depicted as the god of creation in the Babylonian Enuma Elish, while his father Enki was considered the creator in the older Sumerian accounts. It is evident that people were afraid of Marduk, as they feared punishment if they did not support his regime. The outcome, confirmed in Genesis when they exclaimed, "Let us build a city and a tower. Let us make a Shem, lest we be scattered abroad." The people of Sumer in ancient times built a monument to honor Marduk, a god who wasn't liked by the powerful Enlil. As a result, Enlil stopped supporting the people and left them on their own. In 1960 BC, invasions started and the court of Enlil, the Anunnaki, abandoned the city. Later on, it was discovered that Enlil himself had caused the invasions by opening the gates of Sumer to the invaders. The scribes wrote that Enlil was responsible for the great storm that caused the destruction of the people who had been loyal to his nephew Marduk. The high gates, the roads, were piled high with the dead. In the wide streets where feasting crowds would gather, scattered they lay. In all the streets and roadways bodies lay. In open fields that used to fill with dancers, they lay in heaps. And there you have it, folks, the Bible's wild ride through God's paradoxes, and the Tower of Babel has left us on the edge of revelation. What seemed like a divine will might just be a cloak for ancient family feuds and political drama among the Anunnaki. Hit those like, subscribe, and share buttons, and don't forget to comment. Until next time.